Hey guys, welcome to FPG. Today we're gonna take a look at the faction of the Orks. One of the craziest factions I have ever seen. They're so much different than every other Ork race that I heard about in any basically game or universe. So I'm pretty excited. This will be split into two parts because it's rather long. But without further ado, let's get right into the Orks Wars Live. Here we go.
Orks are one of the most fearsome, savage, insidious, and most well-established races in the 41st millennium.
Hell yeah.
They lack any empathy even toward their own race, and they exist as a genetically engineered creation of instinct and a DNA-coded sense of purpose. They're created for one task and one collective goal only: to wage unending war.
Hell yeah. I think what we learned in the last video was that they were created as a far more, strong and intelligent form of life, but they devolved into just those raging war machines with the power of make-believe and serve as a comic relief kind of style. So I'm pretty interested in that because I love that goofy shit. And paired with all the brutal instincts, that might be just great. Oh, history. Zoology.
The Orks are one of the older races in the 41st millennium, along with the Eldar, being created by the Old Ones.
Yeah, exactly.
The then Kruk would later become what are now known as the race of Orks.
Okay.
The Eldar were a higher form of design, with them possessing many levels of high intelligence. The Orks are their exact opposite, working on pure genetic instinct. Orks and greenskins in general, though, are not born from sexual reproduction. They're rather grown from spores.
Wait, what?
And all orcs are grown from these same spores and fungus.
So they are mushroom people? That's interesting. I didn't see that coming. That is orc fungus. Okay, that's yeah, that's I don't know what to say.
Be they lowly snotlings and Gretchen or full-blown orc warriors. Once a planet becomes infected with orc fungus, either by chance or invasion, it'll likely never be free again.
What the hell?
Having to forever defend against the unrelenting green menace.
Right at the beginning.
This infection is often likened to something like a terminal disease. Once a world is contaminated, it will surely be a case of when, not if, it will eventually wither and die.
So, were they created that way by the creators so, they spread easier and they reproduce faster and can go wild? Basically as a plague against the enemy, that they were crafted this way? Or did this change over time? Because it seems intentional, but that's, very, very weird way. I like that the orcs in this universe are just so different to every other orcs I know in any other universe. They're very special, and I like that about them. I feel weird that they are not one of my absolute favorites of 40k, because 40k has so many interesting factions. It's hard to pick your favorites. And I would say in every other universe, that would be most likely my number one. Without a doubt.
Orcs are enemies to all throughout the galaxy, but despite their crude and instinctive-driven nature, they should never be underestimated. Defense to an orc assault can seem almost hopeless from the outset for some human worlds. With all their strength and power that they can wield, to fight the orcs is nothing other than a battle of attrition, a slow grinding down of morale and willpower. For a successful defense against any assault from the greenskins only buoys their spirits and emboldens them further to attack again with more fury and more enthusiasm. They won't relent, they won't slow or surrender. There is no respite, there is no escape. A planet infected by the orc menace is a doomed world. Orcs possess a powerful genetic sense of being, to fight, to conquer, and to never surrender under any circumstances. Their
badass.
strategies, if you could call them that, are usually unsurprisingly simple and unashamedly direct: to overwhelm the enemy with sheer weight of numbers or absolute weapon superiority, to never show their enemies mercy, to smash and obliterate all who oppose them under an unrelenting green tide
Cyborg
of
machines.
ultra-violence.
You know, in basically every other universe, they would absolutely fear the orcs. It would be the worst plague ever, and when they come, they would run. But 40k seems to be so grim and wild that I don't know if the orcs, or getting to fight the orcs, or being overwhelmed by them, is even the top 100 worst ways to die. I don't think so, because they basically come to you, smash your head in, and it's over. There's so far worse stuff out there. You know, yeah, it might eradicate your planet, but at least you're not enslaved and can't die and are tortured the whole eternity. I don't know. It seems actually pretty good to fight against them, you know. That's so wild to me.
They wage war with machines that defy logic and technical understanding, and they care little for strategic gain, are seen to be just as likely to slaughter one another as they are the enemy. But most especially if an enemy is in their sights. Orcs are often reported to, for example, skewer one another with swords and other melee weapons just so as to gain a killing blow to an opponent, crush their kin with their own vehicles with little, if any, regard, and use heavy weaponry without thought to such a thing as friendly casualties.
I mean, you have
Imperial
to do what
forces
you
are
have to
often
do.
left to wonder, how does one battle an enemy that defies all logic? And their answer is usually exterminatus.
Oh, I heard about those. Those were the, planet destructions that only the Inquisitors can order, I think it was. Those super detective people. I think that was the exterminatus power, basically. And yeah, it's destruction of the whole planet, if I understood it right. So, Death Star kind of situation.
The Orks, as mentioned previously, are an engineered species. They were created some 60 million years ago by the Old Ones, who also created the Eldar and seeded life across the galaxy. The Orks were created, as were the Eldar, to wage war against the Necrons, the ancient enemy of the Old Ones. And the Orks would refer to their creators as the Brain Boys.
The what?
Now, while the
Brain
Eldar were made to be
Boys.
highly intelligent with extremely powerful psychic powers so as to best counter the Necron and Catan threat, the Orks, then Krork, however, were the antithesis of the Eldar. Muscle-bound, irrationally aggressive, and rarely showing signs of advanced intelligence.
The meat shield.
They're driven by designed instinct. Orks, you see, require war and brutality, as others might need food and water to sustain them. To an Ork, war and brutal savagery is not a desire, it's a physical requirement to their identity. And this is why they often fight amongst themselves as much as they would any outside races. While they do possess advanced tech, it is maintained by a class known as Odd Boys, who, as with all other Orks, are driven more by just a gut feeling, a born knowledge, than a true awareness of what they're actually doing. Unlike the Imperium of the 41st millennium, the Odd Boys possess the instinct of skill to not only maintain, but more importantly, to actually develop technology, if you can really call it such. This skill isn't learned or researched by any conventional.
Basically, they're just free spirits that make shit up. That's the power. They have the power to make shit up, and it works. That's wonderful. That's just great.
Sense of tech development. It's instead bound into their genetics. As with all things Ork, most of their skills are instinctive. The best way to really envisage this is for them to just smash things together until by some miracle it just works. A kind of deadly galactic scrap heap challenge, if you will. Orks don't possess any random evolutionary psychic powers as humans might, and say, evolutionary. If it's the Old Ones which have seeded life, perhaps it's by design, but nonetheless, the psychic power with Orks is comically random. And again, being by design from their
That's so good,
creators, the
man.
old ones, this bizarre psychic power allows for orcs to literally will something to be true. That if just enough of them believe it, then it will be so. For example, the
That's so
classic
good.
painting their war machines a certain colour may imbue it with a power, like being more powerful with explosives or just to go faster. Just because enough orcs will believe it to be so, with the proximity of numbers of them, means it will become a reality.
So
This
red
enables
is
orcs to
strong.
achieve things like space travel, even
Got it.
controlling space hulks and bringing them into real space under orc-modified control. A terrifying thought. As well as bringing huge war machines to a battlefield. All of these things, by all rational logic, should be outside their realm of skill
That's
and
great.
possibility. And this genetic trait is also why orc technology, whilst essentially being just a random collection of things smashed together, will become devastatingly fearsome war machines in the hands of orcs. But
That's
then
great.
would just as easily return to being useless junk in the hands of other races. It's a
Oh,
clever solution
that's
to the threat
cool.
of your war gear falling into the hands of an enemy.
Yeah.
And again, this is by design of the old ones. Conversely though, if orc numbers dwindle, then it can be potentially counterproductive. Unlike other races who can wield immense power reliably, even in singular or small numbers, any number of examples would suit, from, say, Imperial Assassins to Grey Knights and Eldar Wraith Knights. The more or less of their own race will not have a bearing on their success, their strength, or their functionality of their tech. Not so much with the orcs. The awareness of this orc psychic functionality came into general understanding.
So it's basically, monkey together strong. That's about it. That's orcs. I like that. That mentality is just very nice. I don't know why, but they are just so cool.
Through the Imperium of Man's tech priests,
It's
who,
everything.
through their own cultivated belief in a machine spirit that inhabits technology, and that this machine spirit serves mankind at the command of the machine god. This imbued them with a perspective and point of reference that enabled them to see the truth of how orcs were able to bring technology to the fore that should have been far out of their reach.
Oh, okay.
Lastly, the orc race's anatomy is
Interesting.
particularly interesting. The old ones obviously wanted the orcs or krork to be functional as a warrior race, a biological war machine. But before you have the ability to wage war, you still have to fulfill any life form's basic needs, like sustenance, food, water, the basics of life. The old ones, in their wisdom, imbued the orcs with a powerful genetic advantage here on top of their already many powerful genetic traits.
Okay.
For one, when it comes to food and liquid intake, the orcs can use their own growing fungus as a food source.
Oh,
They'll happily eat
God.
pretty much anything though when it comes to meat,
Oh,
and the lower
Jesus.
orc forms of snotlings will cultivate this fungus food.
Oh
The more
my
interesting
God.
elements of their biology, though, is that orcs really are something like a symbiotic animal-fungus hybrid, making them partly eukaryotic in nature. Now, fungus
weird,
was
man.
historically part of the plant kingdom, but fungi lack chlorophyll, the green pigment in plants that converts light energy to chemical energy.
Okay.
They also have other distinct structural and physiological features, and are so classed separately from plants. Now, it has been suggested that orcs' green skin and their blood could directly contain chlorophyll, so as to allow orcs to actually photosynthesize as a plant does, and thereby
What the
provide
hell?
orcs with some energy so they can survive longer without actual food. Now, the only problem, this makes absolutely no sense
Yeah, my
for the
brain had
reasons that I
stopped
just mentioned.
working.
Fungi don't have chlorophyll. So if orcs grow and were cultivated as a plant-based life form, in part, this would actually be more reasonable. But they're not. They're grown from fungi. So apparently the generator Magos biologists of the Imperium should actually do some more microscopic comparisons before they reach their conclusions.
Yeah,
However,
learn more.
it's also suggested that orcs in their blood and bodies may contain some sort of algae, and that this might be actually what's responsible for the
God.
coloration, and then also possibly the ability to photosynthesize to a degree. This is a more reasonable concept, but as with all alien races, information is pretty scarce.
I got screwed over here because I was not that good in chemistry. I was okay, but I stopped doing a lot for it, so that just basically burned my brain. that hurt. That hurt.
And speculation is abound. So this one point aside, other orc anatomical interests are that an orc's animal-fungal symbiosis means that they actually contain less critical organs than, say, a human, meaning orcs can afford to take wounds and damage that actually might kill a lesser creature, but it will allow them to continue functioning. Part of the reason they are so surely haphazard when in battle, almost careless, is their bodies are essentially designed to be simple, practical, and operate even when catastrophically damaged.
Okay.
Which rings true of everything we know about their purpose and their design.
Yeah, it makes
they were
sense.
designed to be a biological war machine and nothing more. Orc growth, though, is a strange thing, whereby orcs will grow according to, I suppose, unsurprisingly, how violent they are. They'll generally continue to grow at a varying rate dependent on how successful they are in combat, be that versus other orcs or their enemies, and then their growth will stagnate again.
Sure. That makes sense.
Orcs live across a wide and scattered number of worlds throughout the galaxy, some in a state of war, some in endless skirmishes, and some dominating worlds, ruling them as overlords, with often human slaves obeying their brutal command. The Orcs' expansion was really an accident, as best known in Orc history. Of course it was. This is why even now their settlements are often random with no real pattern, focus, or direction. The Eldar claim Orcs have become part of reality itself. Mankind, as well, scouted, probed the galaxy, all of the known galaxy, and everywhere that they explored, they found the Orc. The galaxy at this point is contaminated beyond any hopes of cleansing and salvaging it from the Orc. Because of the random and haphazard fashion by which Orcs discover, explore, and inhabit the galaxy, they have splintered into various communities, if you want to call them that. These communities are usually just a confederacy of tribes, either loosely or under a warlord. Each tribe is a random bunch of orcs just smashed together with clans and various mechs and materials. It's a mishmash of violence and constructivity. It's best not to overthink it. It bears no resemblance to any ordered sense of a community or a society. Orcs have known of mankind and their emperor for some time. They know that humans worship the Emperor and have seen his shrines and symbols across human society. They regard the Emperor as the god of the humans. And this is easy for orcs to understand as they have their own gods. Even though they see humans as weak, they do respect the Emperor as a powerful war god. From the orc point of view, the Emperor is a constant warlord to the humans. They see him everywhere in human society, and so do the orcs. This widespread war god must surely be powerful, and therefore to be respected. Some orcs speak of a legend where the Emperor would appear as a manifestation challenging the orc gods to battle, but still, despite this, he's also seen to the orcs as a confusing figure. Why he would command his human servants to take on so many pointless tasks when they could be just fighting makes no sense to the orcs. The humans' constant failures or their stress and despair seems to underline this confusion for orcs, hence why they often use the word "human" as a slang for things that are pointless, impractical, or just counterproductive. The orcs' attitude to life is fairly simple, and therefore they cope with the realities of the universe far better than many other races. With no overarching goals and day-to-day concerns being really only whether to build or fight or eat, it's quite a stress-free life.
Yeah, that was one of the first thoughts I had when I saw the orcs. You know, basically they're the only ones really enjoying the 40k universe. Everybody else just lives a miserable life. They have no fun. Life sucks. It's so bad, but ever since I learned about a little bit about the orcs, it's basically, yeah, for them, the universe is just great. You know, there's everywhere something to fight. They never stop fighting. They're just having fun. They're doing what they're made to do. They're, you know, for them, life is just great. For everyone else, man, what a shit place to be.
Life. Especially when you have no fear of your own mortality, from an orc's point of view. Generally speaking, they don't try to influence their own destiny, they don't try to apportion blame, unless it's some stupid Gretchen looking to get his head bashed in. Their hatred is spread equal among their enemies and their allies, and if they fail, they feel no guilt, try again in a different way. Unlike humanity, chaos has little to any fear or effect with orcs. Their minds are hardwired to their simple day-to-day activities, so dreams of power and turning against each other for some cause is not something that's likely to spread very insidiously through a tribe of orcs. They're probably too busy already killing each other over some far more trivial matter. And because of their simple and objectively speaking stress-free lifestyle, it leaves little psychic stress by which chaos can actually invade them. Also, even though some races may look upon the orcs as evil, either due to their near mindless savagery or their endless conquest of worlds, this is actually a pretty ignorant perspective. Lumping orcs in alongside dark forces like Chaos or Dark Elder is really a disservice to the orcs, because they exist by design, and they have become simply very effective at existing. They follow their instincts, and these are hard-coded into their very being. Evil? I don't think so, but brutally savage, definitely. It's also often mistaken that perhaps if one were to see Chaos and Orc fighting on the same battlefield, that they are somehow an alliance. In reality, it's probably more simply that the Orcs just see them as other fighters on the field, who they'll probably turn to deal with in short order once the nearer enemy to them has been battered into submission.
Oh, that's cool.
And when it comes to trade, Orcs strangely do have this as part of their culture, and they use their teeth. Literally their teeth. It's actually a comically natural solution to economic inflation, because orcs go through their teeth similarly to something like a shark. They replace and regrow them frequently. Orc teeth also degrade over time, so it's impossible to stockpile them. This keeps prices in orc trading constant and ensures that all orcs have access to regular currency and commodities. And besides, if you're running short on teeth, it's no problem. You can just go smash some other orc's face in and get yourself some more. Orc language is deemed as being low gothic, and orcs are able to communicate with others, but at a very basic level. Orc script, though, is very different altogether, and it's actually written in glyphs. The core of this is simple clan indicators, and these are then adapted using phonetic symbols which can form some of the key orc words. It's pretty simple though, because it's just generally not needed by the orc race. They function by design, not structure or organization. They have no need to keep records, log data, or any other useful societal function for writing and literature. These aren't important for orcs. The orc way is one of near anarchy. They're ruled by traditions and understandings much more than laws and governing. And it's pretty simple. Orc society is about conflict. Strong orcs will rise up, weak ones will work or are killed, and they in turn benefit from the leadership of the stronger orcs. If an orc tribe is beaten by a stronger one, the survivors gain the leadership of a better tribe, making them stronger. And there's no rules about a tribe's size, location, or purpose. It's just the rough grouping of orcs in a given area at a given time. And each is led by a warlord whose authority is pretty loose, giving just maybe enough rule to prevent all the orcs from turning on each other. A tribe could be a few hundred strong, a few million. The literal numbers are not important. Large tribes are usually split into smaller groups of warbands which are ruled by war bosses. And these warbands are usually a few hundred strong, creating smaller forces ready to battle wherever it's necessary, or whenever they feel like it. While orcs will belong to a tribe, they also will belong to a clan. Now, a tribe may break apart into parts or form new ones, but clans are enduring and remain a reasonable constant from an orc point of view. Some of the most noted orc clans are as follows. Now, the Bad Moons, these are some of the most wealthy orcs. They're essentially what could be regarded as the merchant caste in orc society. The Blood Axes were the first orc clan to encounter the Imperium of Man, and they adopted human tactics of camouflage, albeit slightly bright camouflage. And usually for orcs, they'll sometimes actually retreat, having picked this up also from humans, but they'll usually return, and in greater numbers. This clan will sometimes even trade with humans, even having been known to work as mercenaries for them, which sounds crazy, but may be uncomfortably necessary. The Death Skulls are essentially looters and scavengers. They appropriate battlefield loot to make themselves stronger, including Imperial war gear. The Evil Sons are orcs who are committed to speed, and whatever makes them go fast should be as loud as possible. They also love flying vehicles like fighters, fighter bombers, and they usually seem to wear at least some red material, because as all orcs do know, red ones go faster. Goths. The Goths are simply tough orcs. They're the biggest, the most brutal. They thrive on battle more so than others, and they're driven by the blood fury of close quarter battle. Snakebites worship ancient traditions over advanced tech. They protect themselves with war paint and may even choose to remain as feral orcs instead of developing their skills with mechs and guns. Finally, the freebooters. These are the pirates. These orcs are notorious thieves, preying upon anything or anyone that they find. They'll kill anybody they see.
You know, from the aesthetic, I might love them the most. They're just great, you know, those pirate orcs. It's wild to see them, especially with all their metal and gear and stuff like that. They're just aesthetically a banger. They're such a banger, especially because they're not normal pirates. They're fucking space pirates, okay? That's at least twice as cool.
They'll seize upon, haul their booty back to their hidden bases.
So
now we go to orc religion. Whether intentional or not, the old ones ended up imbuing the orc with a religious sensibility. They worship their two gods, Gork and Mork. One is brutal and cunning, and the other is cunning and brutal. The orc gods are the center of orc energy. They drive and power their whole culture.
That's so stupid.
The best idea we have of how the orcs perceive their gods is in their mechs. These are the physical manifestation of their orc gods and drive their followers into stupefying frenzies of violence and bloodlust. They're also seen in armoured battle suits Gorkanaut and Morknaut. These armoured suits are seen as idols, and the orcs piloting these suits gripped with visions of their gods, urging them to fight on harder, faster, more brutally, and inevitably to meet their demise on the battlefield.
Amazing.
While orcs often talk of Gork and Mork as separate entities, it's even possible they are one, perhaps with two sides, or provide different visions to different orcs. Still, it doesn't stop the orcs from often favouring one or the other, being known as either Gorkers or Morkers. One figure in the Imperium knows more of Gork and Mork than most others. He is Vulcan, the Primarch of the Salamanders. He is what's known as a perpetual in the 40k universe. Essentially, he's an immortal. He can regenerate from almost any injury, even something like being vaporized. Vulcan disappeared after the Horus Heresy, but he would appear some 1500 years later on the Imperial world of Caldera to aid in defending it against a massive orc invasion. Although he died many times over, he would regenerate and appear again on the front lines. The Imperial Inquisition requested he lead a mission to destroy the orc warboss known as the Beast, but Vulcan refused until Caldera was saved. With the aid of Imperial forces, Vulcan saved Caldera from destruction and would return to Terra, gathering an Imperial force to Ullanor, to the homeworld of the Beast. Vulcan would lead the final charge into the Beast's massive...
That sounds like a great story. Is that a book or something? Or maybe... I wish they would put that in a game. That sounds like an amazing thing for a game. You know, a mission where you go after this massive orc beast as him as commander, maybe, you know, some hero type class or stuff like that, and you hunt it down. That sounds actually like a great game to play and a nice story to hear.
Temple Gargant confronting the warboss there. During a powerful struggle, the Primarch and the warboss would fall into the Gargant's power generator, and Vulcan created a detonation in the generator so powerful it killed not only the beast but a massive chain reaction, shattering the Temple Gargant and obliterating them. Vulcan presumed dead by the Imperium, but the Salamander Space Marines still hunt for him, believing him indestructible and that he will return to them. And the point of this story was what Vulcan would witness in the heart of the Orc Gargant when exposed to its powerful generator. He witnessed the raw energy that was the culmination of all the Orcs' Warg, and he would witness the origins of the Orcs and their gods Gork and Mork battling one another at the beginning of time. This powerful vision allowed Vulcan to understand the true nature of the Orcs, how they are a race of evolution through experimental anarchy.
That's cool. Voice. Can orcs even read that? I don't think so.
Now, the orcs have been an ever-existing threat to the Imperium of Man, but towards the end of the 41st millennium, there's been seen an explosion in Orc Warg. Now, the Orc Dominion, or Empire, marks the regions in the galaxy currently controlled by the Xenos. Some planets are now completely controlled by the Orc race, where others are in an unending state of brutal, nightmarish, and near hopeless.
You know, that sounds actually rather boring for the orcs, you know? They come to conquer, but if they have conquered something, from my point of view, they would most likely lose interest in it because, you know, there's nothing left to fight besides each other. You know, you can do it for a while, but it is a lot more fun to, you know, fight others and conquer again. So they basically conquer, yep, done. Let's go to the next planet. Lame now. I don't want to play with this anymore, you know? Kind of like that.
It's war. Orcs have been heard to keep under control some of the local populace, creating a prison workforce who are kept in unbearable, exhausting and dangerous conditions, abiding by their uncaring savage slave masters. Most of these prisoners will be unlikely to ever know any other life than being subject now to the Orcs' brutal will. But the Orcs will at any time also control random isolated worlds, as well as rampaging hordes that sweep through the galaxy, battling all that they encounter. They also have been found inhabiting ancient space hulks. Now, as an aside, a space hulk is simply a term given by the Imperium of Man to any ancient wrecks of space vessels. These hulks are no mere freighters or even warships, but giant ancient vessels, possibly from the early exploration of mankind or even lost in the Age of Strife. They can be so massive as to even maintain their own gravity, or in rare cases, atmosphere. The hulks can often appear and disappear, transitioning between the warp and normal space. This makes exploring them extremely dangerous. As well,
so they are like ghost ships in space, kinda. You know, there are a lot of movies, so, you know, you find a empty vessel, it just appeared, woo, and then there's some spooky shit going on. But it's basically ghost ships in space, man. I love that. You know, that universe seems to have everything. They have everything but in space. And it's always cool. I love it.
As well as orcs, they often can host other dangers like the vile Xenos Tyranids, who have been found often using these hulks as breeding grounds for their gene stealers. Even Chaos Space Marines can sometimes be found there, either searching for ancient tech or preparing to launch hidden attacks against the Imperium. While there is great potential reward in searching a space hulk, there is also immense danger, coupled with the ambient danger of the own hulk's instability. As such, searching these vessels is left to the elite warriors of the Imperium and the Space Marines, the Space Marine Terminators. They're some of the most heavily armoured units within a Space Marine chapter, and their ancient Terminator armour enables them to carry out the extremely dangerous task of searching the hulks. Humans have explored extensively in the 41st millennium, and they have found orcs to inhabit every corner of the galaxy, and this seems unlikely to change now or in the future. The orcs are not a race of reason or diplomacy or even needs. They exist as a genetically engineered creation of instinct and a DNA-coded sense of being. They spread across the galaxy more like a plague than conquerors. This plague of war is often referred to as the Warg. Orc conflicts usually will remain localized to their own planets, or objectively speaking, small raids to worlds inhabited by other races or other orc or pirate-like raids on passing ships. Again, as with most things that orcs do, there's usually not a grand plan here, so don't overthink it. A warg, though, is a different happening altogether. When numbers of orcs reach a critical mass, they feel a need to migrate to form a crusade of apocalyptic aggression that will sweep through a region, destroying anything in its path. Numbers of orcs are beyond estimation, then they'll swarm through a segmentum of space, exterminating everything in their path. You could liken this to a locust plague or a viral pandemic, until it eventually burns itself out. A warg also refers to a psychic field that affects orc psyche. This is, again, as with all things orc, an instinctive state, enabling them to make simple observations of understanding. This applies to everything from designation of seniority, which again, don't overthink that, it's usually more akin to who is just bigger and therefore more right. All orcs generate this dull psychic field by default. It binds them together and helps their ramshackle culture function.
Let's go.
The more orcs that are present, the stronger this shared psychic field becomes, and this is amplified through sheer numbers, or if they say are enjoying a really good bit of battle and smashing their enemies' faces in. The warg helps drive them, and you could think of it as being akin to momentum, where past a point it's just going to increase. A warg can begin on a small scale, sometimes as a small individual who may have some vision of great carnage and feel inspired to share with others by smashing their heads in until they get it. Or if he's imbued with a sense of tech skill, maybe he's going to create some giant gargant war machine that gets the blood and hype of his fellow orcs running high. The rumours of war and coming carnage spread like wildfire through the orcs, only exacerbating this sense of warg.
That's insane.
An orc war boss, who is simply a big powerful orc in command of his tribe, will usually rise to their aspired position through just basically beating the hell out of all around them until fellow orcs just get it that he's the biggest and the strongest.
Just get it, man.
His decisions will be enforced by a ruling caste of orcs known as knobs, and these are again a bigger than normal orc who will surely remind those below them of the fact at every opportunity with some casual violence. A war boss in a time of warg will assert himself through unsurprisingly more savage, senseless violence towards his fellow orcs. When a war boss has created enough blunt trauma to be recognised as a powerful boss, he'll then be deemed an orc warlord. As his status spreads, more and more clans will come under his control, growing an unrelenting green mass of aggression. The mechs and brain boys will build ever more outlandish creations, absurd in their brutality and genius in their creativity. Vicious war machines.
You know, there were these giant robots, what was it? Rex? Oh, it looked like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You know, this giant robot that always... Did he hate cars or whatever? It was an attraction and sold off later. It looked like one of those battle bots, basically. Just turned way up. It's insane. But it must be a spectacle to see them, man. Must be.
Belching smoke and oil, poisonous vapours, acrid smoke, mobile fortresses, titanic war engines created from basically random scrap metal and abandoned, twisted, now cannibalised war engines. As the war boss grows ever stronger toward becoming the warlord, he will subsume his challenger's armies, with many of the orcs now seeking the sense of warg with a bloodthirsty insanity. Mech boys raise towers of warg and gargants will start to be seen. Gargants are the equivalent of Imperial Titans and so represent a world-ending level of firepower. These gargants are idols or seen as avatars to the orc race as manifestations of their gods.
That looks stupidly crazy.
They are merciless weapon assemblies of sheer destruction. Gargants form no standard pattern of design, as does barely anything in the orc way of creation.
Crazy.
They are instead a random collection of parts and combinations of cannibalized war machines. And this excitable and chaotic nature of these builds...
They look like a giant battle fortress, you know? Like just a giant fortress with a lot of guns, lasers, crane arms.
makes their weapon systems unreliable. Their whole design is haphazard and probably about as dangerous to the crew as to their targets on their battlefield. A clear difference between most orc war machinery and other races in the galaxy is they don't utilize guidance systems commonly. They also carry large crews of orc and the lower, smaller race of Gretchen. And they operate these war machines as a team, passing down orders as you might imagine a steamship of, say, the 19th century, calling down orders to the engine room and so on. Gretchens are significantly physically smaller than orcs, and so they're used to repair systems on the go by crawling into tight spaces. Gargants are usually weaker in terms of armor compared to Imperial Titans and relatively shorter range of weaponry. However, they're still difficult to destroy because of the compacted, dense nature of their construction.
You have to love them, man.
There is one rarer variety above a normal Gargant, known aptly as a Mega Gargant. And this is essentially a mobile fortress running on tracks. Imperial tales tell of orcs laying siege to cities, spending even as long as 18 months to construct these colossal machines of war.
Wow, that was a crazy first part. I don't know, I just love the orcs. I feel so weird about that they are not one of my favorite, top 3 factions, because there's just so much that I love in this universe. It's weird. Maybe there will be soon, hopefully, because I really like them. But still, for my 3 favorites, it's still not in there, which just feels off to me, because they're basically everything I love. And the history with the fungus, I didn't see that coming. That come right out of left field, and it was just insane information to me. Even my cheeks hurt the whole time because I was just smiling away, and I had such great fun with this video. And I can't wait to continue it. It's just a little long, for one video. If it's 1 hour long and I put the reaction on top, we go up to 1.5, 2 hours. That might be a little long for one video, but I love it. I will continue it. There's also the series of the Emperor of Men I really want to see. So we'll take a look of that. Also, looking into the other factions, the other races. That will be great fun. For now, I'm so glad I started with the Orks basically for the deep dives because they're looking great, they're looking insane, and I have a lot of fun. I love their words, their culture, and it's pretty cool lore-wise what they did with them. I haven't seen stuff like that in a lot of other fantasy universes. It's just great what they've done. It's just you have to compliment them. It's insane. But that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you in the next one. Bye!